Happy New Year, everyone. It's Olivia Wall, and today we are talking about something that might make you a little uncomfortable, and that's exactly the point. When was the last time you saw a group of children just roaming? Bikes scattered across a neighborhood, kids disappearing into the woods until dinner time, building forts with whatever they could find. If you grew up in the 70s, 80s, even early 90s, this was just childhood. But if you're raising kids today, this almost feels radical, maybe even reckless. My guest today, Rusty Keeler, believes that we've fundamentally changed childhood, not because kids have changed, but because we've wrapped them in layers of fear based rules that actually prevent the very experiences they need to become resilient, creative, confident humans. Rusty has spent over 30 years across over 20 countries designing natural outdoor play environments, and he's on a mission to spark what he calls a play revolution. And here's the counterintuitive part. He says that the safest thing we can do for our children is let them experience manageable danger. See, most of us have created increasingly safe playgrounds, rubberized surfaces, low equipment, tons of rules, while childhood anxiety and lack of resilience have absolutely skyrocketed. We've been doing it wrong. We've confused protecting children with preventing them from learning how to protect themselves. Rusty's going to introduce us to the difference between risks and hazards, explain why cardboard boxes and traffic cones might be more valuable than expensive playground equipment, and share how the Reimagining Recess project here in Ithaca, New York, transforms schools by training adults to say yes instead of reflexively saying no. Here's what you'll walk away with: practical ways loose parts unlock creativity, why observation beats policing every time, and how stepping back with a cloak of invisibility, as Rusty calls it, lets you see the magic that's been there all along. If you've ever felt that gut clench watching your child climb higher, or if you're an educator feeling alone and believing play matters more than test prep, this conversation is for you. Let's jump in. This is Schoolutions Teaching Strategies, the podcast that extends education beyond the classroom. A show that isn't just theory, but practical, try it tomorrow approaches for educators and caregivers to ensure every student finds their spark and receives the support they need to thrive. I am Olivia Wall, and I am so excited to be in conversation with Rusty Keeler today. Let me tell you a little bit about Rusty. Rusty Keeler is on a mission to spark a play revolution, bringing nature, risk, and pure joy back into childhood. Rusty believes that children need to connect with the real world outside. Our conversation today will focus on his experiences with designing natural outdoor play environments. You must know that Rusty has written 3 different books and also hosts the Play Nature podcast. Rusty, I am so happy to have your insights and experience shared with my listeners. So let's jump into conversation.
Sounds great. So happy to be here.
Yeah. So I start every episode with asking guests a piece of research or a researcher that ties to the topic we're discussing. What would you love to share about?
Um, you know, I'm a big fan of Peter Gray, who is a research psychologist in Boston. And I've just been following his work for years. He's delves into play, child-directed learning, self-directed learning, and he always has just incredible things to say that kind of just open my mind. And and kind of the idea of, because I'm kind of a advocate and a builder, and kind of doing things in the play world because I believe in it. And then it's nice to see research that that follows it up and backs it up, and you know sprints is on.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I am trying a new structure. And so, what we're going to do is have part 1 of our conversation and then break it into a second part 2. And we're recording all of it today. And so, the part 1 I really want to focus on, I'm deeming it the play crisis. And then with a positivity switch, also permission to say yes, because you have so many strategies that allow us to shift from the no to yes. With that said, you have 30 plus years doing this work across 20 plus countries. And I'd love for you to start the conversation with how have you seen play change and shift over the years with our kids?
Sure. I grew up playing in the '70s and the '80s, and it was like the classic free range childhood. I lived in kind of a small town, so it was relatively safe just to roam and range around. And I both had fields behind my house that seemed to go on forever, and I was there in all seasons of the year. And then I was able to, as soon as I was 10, I was on the bike and the town was mine. The town was kids, it felt like it belonged to kids and, they're the ones who are out and about, even while adults are working and doing other things. So for me, that was what normal childhood was like, or if you picture like old Sesame Street, you know, episodes, where it was just like kids were just out and about. And kids generally speaking, aren't out and about like that anymore. And I've been kind of in denial of it for a long time or believing like, "No, it's not really," or "It's okay," or, I don't know. But it's certainly clear. And, with rise of technology, with certainly, you know, uh 24-hour news networks, there's all
Yeah.
these different reasons, that, you can dive into, but certainly childhood has shifted in that sense of children just having that kind of freedom of time, freedom of space, having actual safe neighborhoods, because that's another thing, there are neighborhoods that aren't safe,
Mhm.
um, and and then the technology and phones and screens, and it's all over the world.
Yeah.
It's not just in New York State, it's not just the United States, not just North America, it is a concern everywhere, and even in developing countries, screens are a big part of things now. So even where you would think like, "Oh, well, technology's," the technology has kinda skipped ahead even in those countries, and
Mm.
children are on screens. So there is definitely a beaming to our children and a more sedentary lifestyle, and again, generally speaking, but still kind of across borders and across socioeconomic, levels too. So yeah, so I think that sense of like you don't see the kind of free flow, of childhood just out and about. For one thing, let alone schools and recess and, pressure at school and amount of time for free time within schools and overschedule and everything.
Well, and you do a beautiful job because I know caregivers often want to make sure their kids are safe. And so there is this fear looming. You've alluded to it a little bit about like letting your kids just go. And what age is that appropriate? And there are judgy neighbors that there are implications. And so it matters where you live, it matters who you are, it matters your skin color, sadly. All of
Mhm.
these factors play in. And you do a really nice job of differentiating between risks and hazards. So I'd love for you then to explain your thinking around that because I think it will help caregivers to have the wording and, support their wanting to let their kids out.
Sure. Well, it's risk and hazard is nice to think about in say, a set play area or the woods or nature, or a playground at school. And I kind of differentiate it between, I say risks are good, children trying things they haven't tried before, learning grit or resiliency or failing and then getting back up, learning to take a risk, checking in with themselves. Hazards are things, they're both a little dangerous and they could get hurt, but a risk is something a child chooses, makes a decision, checks within themselves. Do I want to do this? Do I not want to do this? A hazard is something that could hurt a child, but they don't see it. So out in a yard, even if we're having messier, muddier, riskier things, we as adults can check for hazards like I don't know, a chunk of concrete or, rebar from a play equipment that's sticking up or, broken toys and that kind of stuff. We can clear out hazards so that we can feel more comfortable letting children take risks, doing wilder things.
Well
Yeah.
said, well said. So then, full disclosure, I live in Ithaca, you live in Ithaca, and
Yep.
my younger son benefited from a project with IPEI, Ithaca Public Education Initiative, called Reimagining Recess. You spearheaded that project. You were heavily involved. And for me as a caregiver, that project truly serves as a model that could be replicated all over the world. So I would love for you to share, what did that project involve? What key players did community members have in getting this up and running in different schools?
Yeah. So, um, the general idea of the project is to give children at recess more choice, more opportunities for play, creativity, collaboration, and freedom. So, recess often has a lot of rules. Playground equipment is usually pretty strong and you can't change it or move it. And then there's adults out there that are like, "You don't do this, don't do that." They're like policing.
Yes.
And while it still is a time of freedom outside the classroom, it often can be very restrictive anyway. So, I'm somebody who's inspired by adventure play and adventure playgrounds that you see in Europe where the kids are building with tools and building their own structures, having fire and animals and gardens and, this kind of freedom. The playwork profession kind of came out of Europe after World War II, and it's people who like support play, know the beauty and benefits of play. Yes, for learning, there's a lot of people saying, yes, play is learning, and that's a way to kind of,
Yeah.
to say that play is important. But even deeper than that, there's a million billion things going on with play in their bodies, in children's brains, in their hearts, their muscles, their joints, their, neuro pathways,
Yeah.
everything. So there's so much going on with play. It is so important that children have it. It's the natural way that we grow and develop. So where are children? And if we think about play equity, and playgrounds and green spaces and where do children play or safety of neighborhoods, well, where are children every day? They're at
School.
school.
Yeah.
And so that is a really amazing opportunity to create an environment, both the physical environment and kind of a culture of play and supporting children in a different way that's inspired by play work, that's inspired by saying yes to children and trying to say no as little as possible. So that was this idea of reimagining recess. And so it was Dr. Beth Myers and myself. She's in Ithaca also. And she's at Northeast Elementary as right now a first grade teacher, but she also is a visionary play person in the play world. Um, it was this idea of like, okay, how can we do an adventure playground model in a school? And so it involved a shed, loose parts, getting a little grant, not a huge amount of money, it
Yeah.
didn't take a lot. Loose parts like tires and traffic cones and cardboard boxes and boards, and training, teacher training and, recess aid training to rethink what recess is, to rethink what play is, to rethink what the possibilities are, and to limit the amount of rules and to increase the observation and appreciation of play. And, sometimes with loose parts, all these kinds of things, we imagine, rightly so, that it's amazing for early childhood, right? Preschoolers, they build and they're creating in the mud kitchens and all this stuff. And of course, it's incredible, right? We love that. But loose parts are great for all ages.
They sure are.
And they sure are. And so we put this out there and, it was an experiment. And at the same time, we had models, European models where they're doing this kind of thing.
Right.
Grab store, play pods, Opal, we can get into that. So we knew it was possible. We believe in this kind of thing. So with training teachers and the adults, uh, well, a lot of different directions to go here. But first off, for the children, once they realized, "Oh, I can use this stuff however I want. It's okay if I do this."
Yeah.
Boom, they're off to the races. They
Yeah.
just had to get the nod of like, "It's okay." And when you see children with loose parts, and I've been to play conferences, international play conferences, and you see the same thing, like cardboard and traffic cones and boards and tires and frying pans in Japan, in Brazil, in Canada, Iceland. The kids are doing stuff with it, right? It's inborn. It's their nature. So what if you did that in a recess? And so children, of course, are flourishing with it. The adults, that's the tricky part of like, okay, this is okay. And some of it is risk. Some of it is saying, okay, it's a little messier. Maybe it is a little riskier, but wait, they could handle it. Like if we, instead of stepping forward and stopping stuff that makes us a little nervous, what if we just step back and observe and
Yeah.
watch what's going on? And when we observe this stuff, kids are doing incredible things and building and collaborating and like never before. Like, before it was like you had your playground equipment, you had kickball games, soccer games, and maybe, a few areas where kids could just kind of get away from it all under a tree and stuff. And that okay, that's great. And if you have freedom, if you have less rules for that, that can be a positive thing. But it also kind of sets this level of who excels, like who's a leader, the leader of the best kickball player or the best monkey bar person.
Yeah.
But you put the loose parts out there and suddenly new people can thrive. New
Mhm.
people can shine. People who have great ideas what to do with cardboard boxes or have like this vast imagination or
Right.
neurodiverse children who are seeing the playground in a whole different way and you give them tarps and then they can lead other kids. And so it's also this beautiful equalizer and also celebrating, people's gifts and everything. So it was, yeah, a beautiful process that is not that in one level, not that difficult. And yet at the same time, it's a lot of conversations because recess and saying no and adults' jobs and what they, it's beautifully complex, all this stuff and risky play. Like there's
Yeah.
so many layers to it and what other adults are going to think, or the idea that some adults like the hierarchy of like, the one who says
Mhm.
no and
The
what you can do and
control.
what you can't. Yeah.
Rusty, this is also making me think so much about access to shared experiences. And so my first years teaching were in California, and all of my children were bilingual, some multilingual. And our whole day was constructed around creating shared experiences. And entire this whole concept, this whole project offers fertile ground for children to take everything that's happening in those experiences of rolling a tire down a hill and watching how fast it can go. Like, I've actually seen this in action at my son's elementary building. Um, and then they can go in and during writer's workshop, they can write about that
Mm,
experience.
mhm.
It gives them something to talk about at lunch. It gives kids, "Oh, I wanna read more about this." And so I think, we're talking about this happening outside the walls of a classroom, but there are beautiful ripple effects that go a million miles into the homes. The caregivers can talk about this. So I will make sure to tuck a link into the Reimagining Recess project and to IPEI in the show notes for this episode so people can learn more. IPEI is such an important part of our community.
Yeah.
Um, I want to wrap part one with some lightning round questions. And then, listeners, just so you know, part two, we're going to go in depth with liability as well, because you've studied that, Rusty, and a lot of it is fear-based and, also it's kind of phantom policy that doesn't always exist, but it's in our mind.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
lightning round coming at you, Rusty. Are you ready? Here we
Okay.
go, here we go. Okay, first question, what is the best loose part at no cost?
Oh my gosh. It's almost like anything that you have laying around. It could be the cardboard box. Here we go
Mhm.
at Christmas. There's gonna be a lot of cardboard boxes.
Yeah.
It could be mud kitchen things like we have some beat up pots and pans. We've all got in the back of our cupboards. There's some things that are ready, some frying pans that are ready for the mud
Yeah,
kitchen. So
okay.
yeah.
Alright, what is a playground rule we need to ditch right away?
Oh my gosh. I almost all of them. I mean, no running, no tag. These knee jerk reactions. Somebody got hurt playing tag, so there's no tag. I always think that's a solution,
Yeah.
but is that the right solution? I like these schools that saying there's 3 rules now. It's don't hurt anybody, don't hurt yourself, and don't hurt the environment. Take care of each of those 3 things.
Awesome.
So if we can boil it down to that, that'd be
Great.
beautiful. Yeah.
Which country is doing recess best right now?
That's a great question. I know, England and Scotland are doing amazing things. Wales is doing amazing things. They're kinda leading the way with play policy at a governmental level.
Oh, smart.
So it's really exciting to see that kind of, child's right to play. And so the UK has this incredible organization, OPAL, OPAL, Outdoor Play and Learning, and they have these very, very, inspiring schools that do training and loose parts and all sorts of stuff. So great stuff.
Awesome. What's a book about play that everyone should read? You can recommend your own.
Yes, Adventures in Risky Play by Rusty Keeler. Um, there's 2 as far as, they kinda have this concept, and, Rocks a Boxin', these are children's books, actually, and that is like adventure play and the freedom of childhood, and it is like adventure play in the desert,
Mm,
and so that's beautiful. And then a favorite book of mine growing up was Katerina and the Box, and that shows a spunky girl and her creativity with cardboard box and kind of the possibilities of imagination and empowerment and resiliency. Yeah,
yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
All right, last question. Part 1 of the conversation. We'll wrap here. What do you hope play advocacy looks like in the next 10 years?
yeah. Um, I'd like to see play everywhere. I'd like to see it feels like we've reached a point where we really need, as adults who believe in this, really need to step up our advocacy and be talking about it and to be doing pilots and to be coming together as communities in schools, in neighborhoods, community centers. And I would like the playwork model to be spread far and wide to inspire us to be saying yes. And because we need it, and especially with technology kind of creeping on and engulfing all of us, I think there needs to be pushback, and that has its place. But we also need to play has its place connecting to nature, connecting to seasons, connecting to each other as humans. It has its place, and I think that should be front and center. So I would just like to see people mobilizing, people who believe this. Let's come together. Let's have the conversations. Let's have our think tanks. Let's move together as a community.
I love it. All right, listeners, stay tuned for part 2. We're going to talk a lot about the playbook and how to make this happen in your schools and your districts with your families. I don't know about you, but I'm sitting here thinking about every time I've said, be careful this week. Every time I've jumped in too quickly. Every time I've stopped kids from doing something that made me uncomfortable, not something that was actually unsafe. Rusty said something in this part 1 of our conversation that's going to stick with me. The difference between risks and hazards. Hazards are hidden dangers that we need to remove. Risks are visible challenges children choose for themselves. And those risks, those are where the learning happens, where resilience gets built, where confidence grows. And here's what gives me so much hope. You don't need a complete playground overhaul to start this. You don't need fancy equipment or a big budget. Cardboard boxes, old tires, traffic cones, boards, pots, pans for mud kitchens. Things you probably already have or could gather for free. The real shift isn't in the materials, it's in us. It's in training ourselves to step back instead of stepping in, to observe instead of police, to ask ourselves, am I stopping this because it's genuinely dangerous or because it makes me nervous? If part 1 of our conversation resonated with you, do me a favor. Like this episode, share it with another caregiver or educator who needs to hear it, and then take one action. Identify one rule in your home, classroom, or playground that needs to go. Just one. Start there. Friday, I'm continuing this conversation with part 2, where Rusty gets super practical about implementation. We're talking about storage solutions, confronting the liability myth, and hearing the success story of the Anarchy Zone at Ithaca Children's Garden. You'll learn exactly how to have those tough conversations with administrators and insurance companies, and you might be surprised how open they actually are. Until then, go outside, watch your kids play, and practice saying yes. See you on Wednesday for the 60-second bite-sized piece of our conversation that you can share with others, and Friday for part 2 of our conversation.